welcome back to Virtual Storytime.
Today, we are going to be talking about one of the best things that you can have in your life, friendship. It is very hard to find, but once you have it, you got to keep it forever.
Yep, it's true. So we will be reading some books and stories to you today all about friends and friendship, and we have a really cool puppet show for you too. So stay tuned and enjoy. Bye.
Today, we are reading a very fun story about unlikely friends, Peanut Butter and Cupcake. Let's find out. Peanut Butter got a ball for his birthday. He was kind of bad at kicking it with his feet, but was kind of good at balancing it on his head. Can you point to your head? Still, it wasn't much fun playing with a ball all by himself. Want to play with me? He asked his mom. They had just moved to town and Peanut Butter didn't have any friends yet. I think you should go outside and find someone to be your new friend, she answered. Peanut Butter liked that idea very much, so off he went. It wasn't long before he saw someone. Oh, let's see. Who do you think is going to be his first friend? Hello, I'm new here and I'd like to play. Maybe now, maybe later, or even all day. I'll make you chuckle deep down in your belly. We'll go together like peanut butter and hamburger? I'm sorry, said Hamburger. I'm busy walking the dogs. Thanks for asking though. You're welcome, said Peanut Butter. Maybe next time. And he kept walking. Then he saw Cupcake playing by herself. He thought she looked sweet and might make a good friend. Hello, I'm new here and I like to play. Maybe now, maybe later, or even all day. I'll make you chuckle deep down in your belly and we'll go together like peanut butter and Cupcake. I'm building sprinkle castles, said Cupcake. You can stay and watch, but don't hit my castle with your ball or I'll be mad. Peanut Butter didn't want to make anyone mad. That's okay, Peanut Butter said, and he kept walking. Who's next? Oh my goodness. Then he saw Egg rolling down the path. Hello, I'm new here and I'd like to play. Maybe now, maybe later, or even all day. I'll make you chuckle deep down in your belly and we'll go together like peanut butter and egg. Peanut Butter and Egg, that's funny. You're cracking me up, Egg laughed. And then he really did crack. Peanut Butter didn't want the egg to laugh anymore, so he kept walking. He found someone jumping. Hello, I'm new here and I'd like to play. Maybe now, maybe later, or even all day. I'll make you chuckle deep down in your belly and we'll go together like peanut butter and Meatball. 32, 33, 34. Shh, I'm counting my jumps, said Meatball. 35, 36, 37. I'm trying to set a record. Peanut Butter whispered back, but I have this ball and 38, 39, 40. Shh, said Meatball. Peanut Butter kept walking. Finding a friend was harder than he thought it was going to be. Then Peanut Butter saw another someone sitting under a tree, and that was good because he was ready to sit down too. Even though he was getting tired, he gave it one more try. Hello, I'm new here and I'd like to play. Maybe now, maybe later, or even all day. I'll make you chuckle deep down in your belly and we'll go together like peanut butter and French fries. Not right now, said French Fries. I just remembered I'm supposed to help Hamburger with his hot dogs, and I need to catch up. Peanut Butter walked up to one more someone who was practicing his ABCs. But before he could open his mouth, Soup picked up a spoon, dipped it into himself, and then showed it to Peanut Butter. In the spoon were two letters, N and O. But I didn't say anything yet, said Peanut Butter. Oh, you didn't have to, said Soup. Oh, said Peanut Butter. Peanut Butter found a bench to sit on. He was almost ready to give up. But as he sat there, so very sad, a new kid walked up to him. "Oh, who's this?" "Hello," she said. Peanut Butter took a deep breath. Hello, I'm new here, and I'd like to play. Maybe now, maybe later, or even all day. I'll make you chuckle deep down in your belly, and we'll go together like peanut butter and jelly." "Sure, I'll be your friend," said Jelly, "but could you teach me how to keep that ball on my head? I'm not so good with my feet." So they taught each other what they knew and made each other chuckle deep down in their bellies. It wasn't long before their laughing made the other kids come over, and they asked if they could play too. Of course, Peanut Butter and Jelly were happy to let them join. As his new friends knocked the ball around with their feet and their heads, and in one case, his buns, Peanut Butter chuckled deeply down in his belly because they all went together like peanut butter and hamburger and cupcake and egg and meatball and french fries and soup and jelly. The end.
And I'm going to read you a story called How Do Dinosaurs Stay Friends? How does a dinosaur keep his best friend when a terrible fight just might signal the end? Uh-oh. Does he scribble a note with a horrible scowl? Does he wipe his muddy feet on his friend's favorite towel? That's not very nice. Does he tear up a book that his friend let him take? You would never do that, right? No. Does he throw his friend's lunchbox straight into the lake? Does he write on the blackboard a very bad name? Does he tell all the kids that his friend is to blame? Does he kick his friend's bike? Does he egg his friend's door? Do you know what that means? It means you throw an egg at it. That's not a nice thing to do. Does he push his friend hard so he lands on the floor? That's definitely not a nice thing to do. Does he scream? Is he mean? Does he spit? Does he spy? Does he tell the new teacher a very big lie? And about who did the pushing and why? No, a dinosaur doesn't. He won't even try. He sends a nice note taking most of the blame. He's surprised when he finds that his friend did the same. He has his friend over to share and to play, letting him choose the first toys of the day. He brings to the school a toy dragon and knight with a card that says, "Really, I don't want to fight." And then when the class is all given a break, he gives his friend cookies he helped his mom bake. That's always a nice thing to do, right? To share cookies. He wraps up a favorite bear with a bow and he brings it along as a gift just to show that even though friends may occasionally fight, there is always a way to make everything right. Good hugs and more keep a friend, dinosaur. The end. Mrs. DeVere was a very little woman, living in a big house with a fine view of the Mermaid Fountain in front of the Opera House. Yet, in spite of all she owned, she was often very lonely. Every day she left her big apartment, walked past the Ecstasy Dance Studio, waited for the lights to change by the Dog Obedience School, then crossed the road into the park. She rounded the corner between the orange juice stall and the Vitamin Biscuit Bakery and strolled down the winding road lined with big green trees toward the beach, the sea, and the sighing waves.
Mr. Derry was a very big man living in a very small cottage by the sea. Sometimes, when the fish were not biting, he felt rather lonely. Then he would moodily wander up the winding road between the big green trees, around the corner by the orange juice stall in the Vitamin Biscuit Bakery, and across the park. He would wait opposite the dog obedience school for the lights to change, stroll past the Ecstasy Dance Studio, and sit down by the mermaid fountain outside the opera house.
While Mrs. DeVere listened to the sighing waves, Mr. Derry listened to the watery song of the gray stone mermaid. Every day, going through the park, lonely Mr. Derry and lonely Mrs. DeVere walked right past each other, too shy to look into one another's eyes and smile. It was as if they were quite invisible to one another.
I need adventurous company, Mrs. DeVere told the sea. But it has to be someone very big because I have a big house. The sea just sighed and shook its waves at her. I need someone to walk along the beach with me, Mr. Derry told the mermaid, but it has to be someone very small because I have a small house. The mermaid whispered back to him in her watery voice, but Mr. Derry could not make out the words.
One day, Mrs. DeVere suddenly had a good idea. Off she went to the dog pound. There she saw nothing but shaggy dogs, baggy dogs, soppy dogs, floppy dogs, strong dogs, long dogs, harmonious dogs, and dogs that sang out of tune. It was very difficult to choose. In the end, she chose a huge, hairy dog called Titania. Titania looked like a small haystack moving around on lolloping paws.
Had Mrs. DeVere looked at the man standing next to her, she might have recognized him. It was Mr. Derry. He had had the same good idea. Mr. Derry noticed only dumpy dogs, jumpy dogs, scary dogs, hairy dogs, leaping dogs, sleeping dogs, and a dog that reminded him of his grandmother. It was very hard to choose. In the end, he chose a tiny dog called Oberon. Oberon's fur was wispy. He looked like a feather duster staggering around on tip-tap paws.
The following morning was lovely. Let's go to the seashore, Mrs. DeVere suggested to Titania. Cheerfully, they lolloped past Ecstasy Dance Studio. Meanwhile, Mr. Derry and Oberon were tip-tapping up the winding road between the big green trees, around the corner by the orange juice stall, and the Vitamin Biscuit Bakery.
Mrs. DeVere and Mr. Derry, Oberon and Titania lolloped and tip-tapped across the park toward one another. Oh, thought Mrs. DeVere, there is a man with a feather duster on a leash. Oh, muttered Mr. Derry to Oberon, look at that woman promenading with a small haystack. But dogs always recognize other dogs. Oberon put his ears forward and barked. Titania barked and put her ears forward. Then they ran wildly toward one another.
Oberon, called Mr. Derry sternly. Titania, shouted Mrs. DeVere. But those two cheerful and determined dogs charged around and barged around and bounced around and pounced around and walked on their front paws and walked on their hind paws in such excited circles that Mr. Derry and Mrs. DeVere were suddenly tied together in the terrible tangles of the two leashes. They were face to face at last, only inches apart, staring into each other's eyes in mild alarm.
Excuse me, I'm so sorry, said Mrs. DeVere. Do let me untangle you. Excuse me, but, said Mr. Derry, it was my dog's fault. I assure you, madam, I have never been tied up like this before. Nor have I, said Mrs. DeVere, sounding rather pleased. Slowly, they untangled one another.
Let me buy you a long drink of orange juice. It is very good in cases of shock, suggested Mrs. DeVere. There's an orange juice stall in the park. I pass it every day. So do I, said Mr. Derry, surprised. We will both have orange juice to lessen the shock, and I will buy vitamin biscuits for the dogs at the Vitamin Biscuit Baker. Then we will all have something. So off the four of them went through the park to the orange juice stall and the vitamin biscuit bakery, and not one of them felt lonely at all.
Ever after that, Mr. Derry and Mrs. DeVere and their two faithful dogs, Oberon and Titania, went either fishing together or to the opera, depending on the weather. While Oberon and Titania went to classes at the dog obedience school, Mr. Derry and Mrs. DeVere took ballroom dancing lessons. They were particularly good at the tango, for which they won several large medals.
People don't always recognize people they've seen before, but dogs always recognize dogs. Does this mean that dogs are cleverer than people? Anyway, Oberon and Titania thought so.
The end. I hope that you enjoyed our really cool stories and that awesome puppet show about the joy of having a really good friend.
Absolutely. And we will have a craft this week for you as well that you can download or try to do at home. And if that's not an option, you can always give us a call and come by and pick it up. And we will be happy to bring that out to your car for you as well. So thank you so much for joining us. Stay tuned here for more videos, and we will see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.